Your team looked like completely different in the first and second half. What changed?
You know, we looked, I don't know exactly, first 10 minutes I thought we were really good. I think it was 8 minutes, whatever, maybe it was 6 minutes, I don't know. But man, then first we missed a lot of, I thought, really, really good shots, which I never fault that, but then turned the ball over, I don't know, I felt like we were on our heels against just kind of an extended zone is what they played, a very, very extended zone, and just didn't handle it at all. It was very frustrating. I know our guys are frustrated, but I can promise you I was frustrated. So to me, the turnovers were the whole story of the first half. We lost any momentum, all the momentum that we had gained early, and gave them, whenever you play someone on your court, you give them hope, they're going to hang around, and we gave them a lot of hope in the first half because I think we had 12 turnovers at halftime. That was the story. Second half, I thought we were a completely different team. Just played with a tougher mindset, more aggressive offensively, attacked more offensively. Still didn't shoot the ball great, which I'm fine with. That comes and goes. And I thought we took really good shots for the most part, but and our defense for the most part was pretty good. The one kid's very hard to guard. Morgan he's a good one-on-one player. They did a good job. They would just kind of run clock. They'd run their stuff. If they didn't get it, he could bail them out with a one-on-one three, guarded three at the end of the clock. So I was really impressed with him. But played a good second half. Didn't turn it over much until the last couple of minutes when we subbed, and it turned into a little bit of a carnival on us. But before that, I felt pretty good about the second half.
Talk about confidence. The night before last, you sense a different confidence level today?
I think it's funny how it comes and goes, and it's certainly it's nothing that you can hand off. It's nothing that you can sprinkle on people. A lot of times confidence comes from just recent success or long-term success. Some guys are just born with more than others, but I do think it is the magic potion. I think if you could say, okay, here are all the categories of an athlete. Let's start in order. I think I would pick confidence as the number one over anything. Over anything is someone with tremendous self-confidence. And I'll tell you, I was around a guy for 5 years that had more than anyone I've ever known, and that was Nick Moore. I've never known a guy that it was beyond what I thought was human. I mean, you couldn't convince him otherwise that he was the best guy in the room. I don't care who's in the room, and the best guy in any game, he's the best one, and he's, by gosh, nobody's going to tell him otherwise. That you don't coach that, you don't give that, you just have that, and it can be fleeting. Right now, I'd like to see us play more confident, but we've had some pretty rough schedule early on. Maybe it dinged their confidence a little bit, but it's not like it's poor either. It's not like we're afraid or anything at all like that. But I think there's going to be an upswing. I hope it's Wednesday night. But I definitely think this team will play with that reckless abandon that you really want.
And is having young guys, putting them in pressure situations, is that part of the deal?
Well, for sure.
I mean, you're having guys.
Oh yeah, if you really examine us, if you really get inside of this team, there's not a lot of minutes out there. There's not a lot of minutes played before in their lifetime. Even Shimmy, for gosh sake, everybody thinks Shimmy's a junior, but go look at Shimmy's minutes played in college. Shimmy's a very, very young player, very young, doing a great job. But he hasn't been through all those lessons, the ones that Ben and Sterling have been through. Benny Malagu didn't play last year. He's hurt the whole year. He hasn't had those kind of minutes. Then, of course, we had our freshmen. So if you're talking about minutes played, we might have as few as, I don't know. I'm sure they do stats on that. I don't look at stuff like that. But that's why I have to be patient. I have to try to be patient, and I will be patient, because I know the truth of these guys. I know that it's not like we got all these guys back that are, you know, have already been through a lot of the wars and learned the lessons, and Ben and Sterling have been through those, and those are the two guys that have played those kind of minutes. And other than that, we're a lot of guys that are kind of finding out.
When you have a game like today or Friday night where it's perhaps closer than some people think it should, you've talked about the offense not being, firing on all cylinders. Do Ben and Sterling, how much of the leadership and coaching do they take on as opposed to leaving it to you and your staff?
Well, I think they do a great job of, I think they have in both games, just taken upon themselves in their play. The players aren't really coaching, but I think your leadership is the way you play. I mean, and those guys, their toughness, their competitiveness, their courage that they've shown in a lot of different areas over their whole career. But this year, absolutely, they're completely taking that challenge, and I really appreciate them for it.
Coach, they shot about 41% from three-point range today, some of which was no defender in sight. So what do you think about the three-point defense?
Today was not good. Today it's not good. If you look at us for the year, I think we were 39% overall field goal percentage for the year, which is great, but our three-point percentage is not great. I think going into today it was 32, so obviously it's going to be a little bit higher, but it's 34 or so by the end of the day. And I don't like that. No, I know we made a couple mistakes, but there's also a few reasons that have to do with, that I don't want to get into, that have to do with, things we have to cover up. And I'll just say it that way. And so sometimes you're a little bit of a darn if you do, darn if you don't. But I thought that, you look at them, like first half they hit some really tough guarded threes. I thought, geez. Second half I thought they got some, some wide open looks. A couple of them were, by the way, at the end in the time after the sub. But still, I agree with you. Our three-point defense, and it's a big factor always. It really is in college basketball. Turn it around. We what do we go, 7 for 22? How many bad threes do you think we took today in your estimation out of 22 shots?
Not many.
Not many, like wide open, right? Like wide open. And we go 7 for 22. On another night, we might go 11 for 22. So I do always want to look at it in terms of how many of them were really guarded and tough shots. I thought some of them were. Not enough of them were for me, and I agree with your point. That was we did not do a good enough job in that regard. A couple nights ago, we really did. They had some other really good guards. A lot of these teams have really good guards, as you can tell. Maybe they don't have quite the interior people. Not that we're a big team, traditional. We're pretty small ourselves up front, but you look around the country, there's a lot of good guards. A lot of guards can play, man. They can. There's a lot of guys who can go off the dribble and shoot a three, and you better be able to defend them. And today we didn't do as good a job as we'll need to moving forward.
Considering that margin, do you think people are going to start to try to shell you more, shell you more from outside moving forward?
Well, and this is the other thing. Every team has a makeup. Every team has, I'll tell it to you this way. The first thing I do is when I scout a game is I pick up the stat sheet of the other team and I look and see how many three-point shooters do they have. How many three-point shooters are in the game at one time? And the reason I do that, because that's the first thing it tells me is how big the floor is going to be that day. In other words, if you only have one good three-point shooting team, then by the end of the game, there's going to be about 4 guys standing in the lane and 1 guy guarding a guy out here at 25 feet. Pretty tough to run offense that way. So in this day and age, you better have some guys that can stretch a floor. We have been playing teams, when you look at Michigan, Boise, USC, have some of the great stretch guys, crazy stretch guys, to where that floor gets really big. And we also, it's no secret, we don't have little small guards to ball hawk type guards that we've had in the past. We don't have Nick or Ryan. Ryan Manuel was the best on-ball defender maybe I've ever coached, And so that, if you can control the point of attack, then it makes it a lot tougher to get those threes. And then, of course, another way you get threes is you throw it inside, and then you have to figure out, well, can we guard him one-on-one or not? And if we can't, then we got to drop somebody down. Of course, then a good pass leads to a three. So that's that is the first thing that I look at. And so part of it will depend on who's their personnel, and then you have to try to adjust to that as best you can and do the best you can with what you have as to a game plan for that.
Sterling Brown played really every minute until the last couple of minutes, and I don't think he picked up a foul until 6 or 7 minutes ago. What'd you think of him today?
Thought he was fantastic. I thought he was absolutely, and I wish he would have had because he's a great shooter. Look at his numbers over the last few years. He's a great shooter. He just had one of those days where he couldn't buy one, but if he has a normal shooting night, he has an unbelievable night. And not only that, I watched him defend, and his defense was so good. He was so spot on all the time, in the right place, never gambling, reading actions before they happen. This is what experienced players do. This is where young players they get hit. They're like, oh my God, there's a screen, Older players see it way before it happens. They see it coming, they fake it, they get around, they have a sense for that. Sterling's very advanced right now. Ben's very advanced that way, and it's fun to watch guys when their IQ at either end, but I'm talking defensively right now, gets really high, and they just kind of have a knack. And I thought Sterling was sensational today, and he went 1 for 9. How about that?
All right, anything else?
Yeah, Coach, you talked a lot about before the season started about playing point guard by committee, getting some of your more inexperienced players minutes by committee. Tom Wilson came in today before Deshaun McDowell. What have you seen from Tom? How do you think his development's going?
It's we're hoping both of them continue to come, because it would really help us. Part of who, it's pretty much our 7 guys that I have to play, right? We've got our starting 5, and then of course Benny Malagu is our first guard off the bench, and Harry's our first big off the bench. So you have 7, and then you have Tom and Deshaun. And so one thing we're definitely not ready to do is to just try to play equal opportunity with those guys, particularly as difficult as the games have been. So what we have tried to do is when we go 8 deep, is to feel like the strength, they both have strengths and they both have some weaknesses that they need to improve on. Which of their strength do we feel like we need more in this certain situation? So let's say today, we thought, in the first substitution, that maybe Tom was a little bit, some of the things he brings to the table might have been what we wanted, we needed a little bit more than maybe what Deshaun, and that certainly has gone both ways. But if I could have, several Christmas presents, one of them would be that a very, very, very short bench would become a little bit bigger bench. That would be a very good Christmas present right there.